So, I'm a little late to this, but a little over a month ago at the time of writing, Johnny Hardwick, a voice of Dale Gribble, sadly passed away. Unfortunately, this is going to leave the upcoming King of the Hill revival without Dale's iconic voice, though at least a few episodes have seemingly been fully recorded by the late actor, and while most have already released their tribute videos to the great Hardwick, I elected to wait a little bit so as to not rush a video. With that being said, I wanted to take a look at a Dale episode that helps encapsulate who Dale is as a character. However, Dale Be Not Proud focuses more on Hank than Dale, so instead I chose Of Mice and Little Green Men. So before we start, I do need to give a little background. This is Joseph, Dale's son, kind of. Joseph was fathered by resident Native American John Redcorn, and his mother is Dale's wife. For the past decade and a half, just about, Nancy has been cheating on Dale without his knowledge. The joke being, Dale, this conspiracy theorist that suspects everyone is against him, never once put together that his wife is cheating on him, and that his son isn't actually his son. I only bring this up because we're going to be talking about that dynamic quite a bit today. Our episode begins with the Rainy Street 4 hanging out in the alley. Bill starts telling the joke about a doctor, a lawyer, and some guy from Oklahoma with a punchline that even he didn't expect.
There was this doctor, and then...
Gets me every time. As it turns out, Joseph is trying out for lacrosse, and we also learn that Bobby is in a play of Mice and Men. Hank tries to avoid helping Bobby by putting a helping him on to Peggy due to his lack of understanding theater. However, Peggy denies him and tells Hank to help Bobby.
You know, I'd love to, but what I really want to do next is direct. It's macaroni and cheese, Bill.
Oh.
Told you it gets me every time. Hank goes to yell at Joseph, who rats out his father, and Hank quickly picks up lacrosse, helping Joseph train. And when Bobby comes over, Hank asks Dale to help Bobby rehearse it for his play. I feel really bad for Bobby here. He doesn't really need help with his acting. The kid has some talent. He just really wanted to spend some time with his clueless father and got denied by him not once, but twice. Dale's support of Bobby actually helps him channel his disappointment in Hank into his acting, and at the same time, we learn that Hank and Joseph are still practicing together. Now, I said I feel bad for Bobby because Hank isn't helping his son. However, I can't say I feel the same for Joseph. We've already seen Dale helping his son, even though he was bad at it.
Oh.
Dale couldn't make the ball go where he wanted it to, unlike Hank. Dale, much like Hank, did take an interest in Joseph's hobby. Though the difference is, Dale took an active interest in helping Bobby, not because he didn't want to help Joseph, but because he knew Hank was going to help Joseph where he couldn't, and because his friend asked him to. There's no neglect in Dale's actions, at least not yet. Now, the episode actively calls Hank out in his actions. After seeing Hank pawn off Bobby to Dale, Peggy calls him out for taking such an interest in Joseph when he should be helping Bobby. And I really like this portrayal of Peggy. Earlier in this episode, we saw a glimpse of her trademark narcissism when Hank tried to pawn Bobby off on her, though unlike normally when she's just building herself up, in this episode, we see her talk about how she was a lead in some play, but the second she looks at Bobby and sees that disappointment on his face, she drops all of the narcissism.
You know, I'd love to, but what I really want to do next is direct. Break a leg, Hank.
Without a second thought, she tells Hank to help Bobby because she is able to read her family fairly well. When Dale's helping Bobby and Hank goes to help Joseph, you can see her emotions clearly. You can tell she's upset at Hank and that she's trying to do what's best for her son. The only thing she doesn't do is tell Hank that Bobby just wants to spend some time with him. And in the next scene, we once again see Hank's neglect as he fails to show up to Bobby's play, though Dale does show up to watch and support, and we also get this great line from Peggy.
Are you as nervous for Bobby as I am?
Dale, if you want to make this a competition, I will win.
Now we get to the part of the episode revolving around Dale and Joseph. You see, while Hank was ignoring Bobby's play, he did so because he was supporting Joseph's lacrosse match, which Dale has neglected to show up to as they are happening at the same time. Joseph voices his disappointment and both groups meet at King Cone, where they're getting ice cream. While the episode cuts to commercial, you can assume that Peggy chewed Hank out, and when we return, both fathers have realized they royally screwed up. While talking, Dale says something that completely changes the show.
I mean, it's not like Joseph's even my son.
Dale reveals that he knows Joseph isn't his son. You see, when Joseph was conceived, Dale was hundreds of miles away hunting aliens. This is where the question of does Dale know about Nancy's cheating come up. The facts are, Dale knows that Joseph couldn't be his biologically and John Redcorn was there, by Dale and also Nancy's request. And we also know that Dale makes leaps of logic pretty easily, though he never questioned Nancy's loyalty. And in a future episode that would have been written with this episode, Dale states that John Redcorn is gay. That episode, My Own Private Rodeo, is 4 episodes after this one. It doesn't matter too much, but in a much later episode, Dale would overhear John Redcorn confess about sleeping with Hank's best friend's wife, which Dale thinks is Bill. Though Hank has stated multiple times before that, Dale is his best friend to Dale.
You're my best friend, Dale.
Personally, while there is evidence that could go either way, and I don't have time to go into it all, I do think that this episode is Dale coming to grips with the knowledge that he isn't Joseph's father biologically, and that he knows that Redcorn is, with all of the alien stuff being more or less a psychological break. That is my interpretation of this episode, and if you disagree with that assessment, let me know what you think is going on here. Anyway, Dale offers Hank an explanation of what happened at Marfa, Texas. When he was getting close to some truth, the aliens came down and impregnated Nancy to keep Dale distracted for the better part of 20 years.
What other explanation could there be? Yep, spacemen.
Hank that night apologizes to Bobby for missing his play, and Bobby informs Hank that the play was shut down. And while Hank pretends to be upset, Bobby Uno reverses Hank, forcing him to replace the actor that had to move cities.
Yeah, but can you at least act like a dad?
Bobby asking Hank to act like a father and adding the fake crying is such a great guilt trip. Dale's side is quite different. He confusingly tells Joseph he's an alien and not his son. Joseph understandably gets pissed off after Dale insults him, and the second Dale flees, Joseph starts questioning himself. After all, he's never really known his father to lie, at least not to him. So Joseph asks his mom if Dale is his father, and she acts all cagey, telling him yes. Joseph starts believing that he is a half-alien kid, and runs away to find his real father. Bobby, who was there too, goes along with Joseph mainly to watch out for his friend and to try and talk him out of it. Because of this, Bobby misses the play Hank's now in, and as they return, Dale reveals that the kids left Marfa. They rush off to pick up their kids, and we see Joseph run off into the desert, followed slowly by Bobby. Hank and Dale arrive at sunset and go into the desert in search for the kids, before Hank finally gives Dale an important lesson. Dale was there for all the important parts of Joseph's life. First day of school, every Christmas morning, so on and so forth. Even if Dale didn't teach Joseph everything and John Redcorn taught Joseph some things, Dale was always there loving his son every step of the way. And because of that, it doesn't matter if you share DNA or not. Family, no matter how they come together, is family. And Dale has always been Joseph's father regardless. And this message actually hits home a little more for me. You see, I have 2 half-siblings, one on each of my parents' sides, and my father once told me that he didn't care if he wasn't related to my sibling on my mother's side. He raised them so they were his kid. It didn't matter if they had 2 fathers or not, and that struck me in a way that never left. It also immediately reminded me of a time where I told my sibling that they were family no matter what. I didn't care that we didn't share a name. I guess what I'm saying is, I love this episode's message, and it's a very important one. Hank and Dale find Joseph and Bobby, and on the way home, Joseph offers a way for Dale to still be his father, which Dale accepts, and tells Joseph that he is his son. Personally, I think Dale's lying to Joseph to put his mind at ease, while keeping secret that Dale knows John Redcorn, or at least someone else, is the real biological father.
Yeah, that Joseph, he's really like his dad.
And that was of Mice and Little Green Men. One of the episodes that begs the question, does Dale know? Like I said, this is the episode I think he puts the pieces together, but Dale loves Joseph so much that it doesn't matter. And if he doesn't after Hank gets dusted, I don't think there's an option for Dale to not know. But what do you guys think? I'm sure there's tons of reasons for either answer, and I'd love to hear them. And if you want something else to watch, check out my other content. I recommend The Character in Progress #2 on Bart Simpson, or check out my other channel, The Shattered Dice Podcast, where my friends and I play D&D. I highly recommend when we played with fortune cookies. That episode was tons of fun.